Priscilla.
Yeah, mucho.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Priscilla.
Hi.
So, Nadia, do we have everything ready that we need to begin the meeting?
I think Nadia might be either having technical difficulties or unable to get on right now, but I believe you do have quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I just wanted to be given. It's so, Tina, shall we go ahead and begin then?
Yes, you can start.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that then now. So we're going to go ahead and call to order a meeting of the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone number 1 meeting. It is Tuesday, January 26th, 2:32. And we'll go to the second item on the agenda, roll call. Arturo Garcia. Okay. Henry Sauvignon here. Jose Castillo.
Here.
Jose Ceballos. Very good. Kirby Snideman. Oh, there you are. Hello, Kirby. Patty Goldberg. Very good. Okay, we have a quorum. Let's go ahead and then also ask you to, you were sent ahead of time, the next item on the agenda, the minutes for the meeting.
Mr. Chairman.
Very good. It's been moved that we approve the minutes.
I believe there was, and I was hoping that Nadia's back on the, so the only comment that was it, which one was it, Nadia? It was the second to the last item, I believe, item. We didn't actually see who did the second, and there might have not been a second to that motion. So we were, and if not, we were going to have to ask if that motion could still proceed.
Which number?
It's number.
Number 6, the discussion with
Oh,
possible
sorry, 6.
regarding the monthly invoice. So Arturo moved on that one, but there's no second.
Well, and do we review the?
The video didn't show it, so we couldn't pick up on it. But if there was a second, we can write it down, definitely.
It was me.
Mr. Ceballos? Okay. And then the other one was number 8, about the calendar. Arturo moved on it also. I don't know if there was a second. The video did not show.
That one I don't remember.
When Arturo moves, I like the second, so it was probably me.
Okay.
Mr. Snyman.
Very good.
Okay. Those were the only 2 clarifications we wanted to make.
Okay, it has been moved in second that we approve the minutes with the corrections made, those 2 corrections made. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
So, and I just wanted to ask, I guess, so when we make motions, if someone can say, I
That's a very good
say
point.
their name.
Thank
Say
you
your
very
name,
much, Gina.
because that might help us, because sometimes the video doesn't record correctly, or,
Yeah, it's too fast, and we're speaking too fast for all of this. Very good. So yes, I'll ask board members, when you make a motion, say aye, and then Arturo, or and second, also say your name. Thank you very much. Okay. Fill out an online witness card no later than 2:45 p.m. and can be found at the City of Laredo's website. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Speakers may not pass their minutes. to any other speaker. Comments should be relevant to city business and delivered in a professional manner. No derogatory remarks will be permitted. Has anybody signed up?
Is from Ms. Priscilla Iglesias from Laredo Main Street, representing Laredo Main Street.
And she's actually also joined us. So
Yes.
I don't know if you or yes.
That's fine. Or Priscilla, if you want to go ahead and you know what you wrote, unless you want to just begin and talk about it.
Yes, I am the executive director for Laredo Main Street. And just as always, extending myself. You all need anything from Main Street, we're always a call away. We support redevelopment and reinvestment in the downtown area. So we look forward to seeing what projects this board has you all do regarding downtown. So if anything that we can be a helping hand, then we are here. And I left my contact information in the public comments so that if you
Thank you, Priscilla. I appreciate your reiterating this. You certainly are known to the board because you make it a point to be attend the meetings and participate. Also, I would add that you can help us be a resource. We already have a calendar for the year of our future meetings, and certainly getting the word out on the meeting would be helpful so that we do have public participation should there be interest in attending this meeting. So already, right from the get-go, I can say yes, thank you, and yes, and that's the item I'm thinking that would be helpful to us.
of course, we'll make sure the word gets out.
Thank you very much.
Priscilla, maybe you could speak to just information-wise about the meeting that's going to happen tomorrow.
Oh, yes. So we are having a downtown stakeholder meeting where we are going to have the participation of the new city councilwoman, Ms. Alisa Cigarra, for the District 8. To the stakeholders. We'll have some conversation about downtown parking, and then we'll also have an open forum where, other items can be discussed that are not on the agenda. If anybody is interested, I think I've been able to send it to a handful of you, maybe that's on the call already, but I'll make sure to get it to the rest of you. And together. But yes, that's going to take place tomorrow, which is Wednesday, January 27th at 3 p.m. It is a Zoom call. So I can share that information with the board right after this meeting.
Hey, is the traffic department going to?
And I'll have to check if there was if they've accepted the invitation.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you for that information. And I certainly encourage those board members interested to please make it a point to participate. Thank you, Priscilla. Okay.
I think also Julian Ratnowski. I don't know. I'm not sure if he had a comment.
The comment portion, which requires, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to fall out of the rules. Gina, does it require? Can I recognize anybody who needs to make a comment as I've done before in the past?
I believe you can.
Okay, great. Okay, so Julian.
To get in, it took a while, so
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure at what point in the meeting you're at.
we just started. We're in the public. We're not in any particular item. I think that maybe Carol was referring to any general comment you may want to make. We're still in the citizen comment section of the agenda, which is the
A
open.
simple general comment, I guess, which is, you guys have been doing a lot of great work, and please get something done.
Yep.
That's pretty much the only comment I could leave at this moment.
Okay. Well, thank you, Julian. I appreciate that. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and go to the next item on the agenda, and that's item 5. Discussion with possible action regarding the Downtown Church #1 project is prepared by Able City. Board member comments regarding the information presented and any other matters incident there too. And I think what I want to do is, first of all, open up with a brief description of a meeting that we had. If you recall, at the last meeting, that would meet with the city manager's office to discuss our progress to date, ask for their support on a couple of items there, and make a after the meeting ended, I immediately received 2 emails from 2 board members asking to be a member of that subcommittee, and that's Jose Ceballos and Patty Goldberg. The city manager's office. I want to thank, as I said at that meeting with the city manager's office, and I want to reiterate now and thank Tina Martinez and Nadia de Leon for helping be the coordinators and the liaisons with the city manager's office. We very much appreciate that help. We know that takes time, and considering that we had Mr. Eads, Ms. Cabello, Ms. Hale, Mr. Mia, among others there at the meeting, including Councilwoman Cigarroa. This was a very good meeting. The floor, before I show the general presentation, more or less it was made to the city manager's office, I want to turn the floor over to 2 people. First, I'm going to start with Jose Ceballos, and then I'll turn it over to Patty Goldberg to just describe the meeting and talk about your feelings and where that went. Thank you, Jose.
Thanks, Henry, and thanks for your leadership in setting that meeting up. Obviously, very well attended. I think it went very well. We had in the past talked about the potential of bonding, and we had put that aside based on where we were. And to hear the leadership, the management leadership talk through the potential, not just of exploring that at a very quick turnaround, but also looking for additional funds. I think the goal of exploring from a high level, being ambitious as you were, to try to solicit from the city leadership as much as you could in terms of leveraging our TERS funds and all that we've talked about in the last multiple months in terms of projects. I think that all was well received. The presentation was open, transparent input, and I'm hopeful for it. I hope that we can put those options presented and offered, that we can do that in very short order, engage the financial advisor. That a takeoff here. So I think overall we're in a good spot with their buy-in. Certainly having the councilwoman there help, regardless. Any prospects to grow our budget with the projects that we discussed. So those are my observations.
Patty. Patty Goldberg? You're still on mute. Oh, there you go. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll invite Patty. Nadia, is it possible to ask you to call up the presentation that you shared with us that was put together by Able City in response to the tasks we set to them?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, do you want the presentation that done at for city managers or the presentation for today?
The presentation for today.
Okay.
Well, I'd be interested in the presentation you shared with city managers as well.
Certainly. And it's a subset of this one, Kirby, which is why I wanted to use this one. But yes, certainly, we can share that one as well. Okay, so what we asked is we gave Able City the task of putting together a little bit of additional information on various points and asked them to put pen to paper and come up with some calculations and numbers. And so this presentation covers some of those points. If you'll go to the next slide, you'll see that what Able City has done is it's added a couple of additional options for the sign, the gateway sign to Iturbide Street that we talked about using the various ideas that board members came up with or discussed. They've also put a price tag on it, showing what the various gateways would look like. Able City, do you have any comments to make to this particular portion?
Yes, sir. These are opinions of probable cost. Obviously, until we get more information with surveys and things like that, but they're certainly in the ballpark. We styled this, or we developed this presentation based on the motion. So it starts with motion 1, and Henry can continue on. You'll see goes to motion 2, 3, 4, and so on.
Okay. So then let's go ahead and go on to the next slide. And the next slide will show us the entrance to Iturbide and a description on how we asked them to make some of the changes to Iturbide. So if we will go to the next slide. And what we have here is we have Iturbide Street from Santa Úrsula to San Bernardo, and then from San Bernardo to San Agustin. And what you see is a treatment of the project on both sides of the street, but this has the option of also working on one side of the street. If we wanted to, we could do the half of the project on one side in order to reduce costs. If you go to the next slide, and I'm sorry, go back to the prior slide. I'm sorry, I left out a comment. So here, what you see here is you see the treatment of the sidewalks, the trees, and the lighting as it's proposed as it crisscrosses the way. I'm sorry, Able City.
Yes. So if it's only on one side of the street that we do it, you have to imagine this without the lights and the posts because we're only working on one side of the street. It would be trees that would be lit from the wells or inside the trees.
Thank you. Okay, next slide. And so here are the budgets as they were proposed put together by Able City that shows the project going from the first one is one side of the street, and that is per number one is one side of the street, and it's per block. So basically, the number you'd have to double it in order to get a real cost for one side of the street. If you go to the section that says two, that cost there is for one block, as it says at the top, per block, and you'd have to multiply it by two to cover the way from Santa Úrsula, San Bernardo, from San Bernardo to San Agustin.
Henry, I can't see the number. Can you say what the total cost is for one side?
So on one side is $181,185, and the one for two sides is $297,000. And I'm sorry that went out there. There it is, and $576.
So, may I add something? First of all, I don't know, Nadia or Tina, if you can just put this on widescreen so people can see it. And then the other thing is that it's not quite exactly double the amount, because obviously you wouldn't have to pay for mobilization and traffic control and other types of things, you know, that would be not double.
Right, but I want to work off, if you don't mind, I want to work off the number you have there, rather than adjust that number slightly by X and all of this. But let's work with the numbers that we have here. But yes, that point is well taken.
Chairman Savigny?
Yes.
Just another layer to remember as we get into the design element of this. We have historic districts and requirements for historic districts. Right now, the interpretation of that board is that any improvement that's made in the historic district requires their review and approval. Typically, when we've done fixes to right of way that hasn't, you know, for repaving a street or whatever, that hasn't gone to them. However, when we're getting into design issues, they technically, the way they're interpreting it now, they have oversight over any design that occurs, any improvement in the historic district. So, for example, the sign or the lighting, whatnot. Now, the PERS has a recourse if they don't like what the historic district rules, and that is they can take it to the council the following meeting and ask council to. You know. But just want to remind you that we do have a historic district where most of these improvements are occurring. We'll
Thank you.
need to go before them.
And that's a good point, and that's part of what the agreement with Able City is, and I think a very important next step is bringing in partner participation in the process. We certainly want buy-in from the community, and I think that's a good point, Kirby. Thank you very much.
And I'll just say that we have one of our new historic district members with us. Priscilla was appointed as as one of the historic district members. So she's new, and we'll get her orientation, and she'll be on the board too.
Very good. And it helps that Priscilla's actually sat in on several of these meetings and understands the process we've been through. Okay, so then if you go to the next slide, you'll recall that we talked about adding trees and doing a touch-up on Iturbide, continuing from San Agustin to Flores. And this is the concept that's been put together by Able City. It's still part of Motion 2, and it shows the cutout, the trees, decorative lighting, etc., that would be part of this project moving forward on Iturbide Street. And then if you the price on this one block area is $115,026. And if you go to the next slide, this was part of something that one of our board members, Kirby, you mentioned you'd like to see improved lighting continuing further down on Iturbide to add another layer of the renovation or the touching up of Iturbide Street. And it shows here the convent, the Flores to convent, the convent to Salinas lighting project, and how much that would cost. $86,424. If you go to the next slide.
Wait, question on that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you can slide.
Let's go back.
So here we already have the existing bulb outs and
Yeah.
sidewalk improvements. So we're just adding lighting.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
That's
No.
correct. Well, I see everything for electricity here,
We-
and
we
lighting.
don't know. We
I'm
don't
sorry?
know. We don't know that if the outlets are there or not, or if there's conduit running underneath at these tree wells. So we made an assumption that they're there, but we added miscellaneous amounts and unforeseen conditions that could be helpful in covering those costs if they're not.
That's understandable, but we're talking about string lighting through the trees, right?
We're talking about, yes, and
So-
it's about 56, it's about 60,
15 grand for string lighting on one block?
no, it's 30 for the whole thing. Built, sorry. Where am I? I'm at the top. Decorative lighting for both blocks. Because it's not only the lighting itself, it's the installation.
Oh, this is 2 blocks.
Yes,
Okay. Well, okay, so 15 grand for string lighting on 2 blocks.
right.
Okay. Seems a little high, but
Again, it's, well, it's based on the linear feet. So it's the same $25 amount per linear foot, which includes, and, you know, we figured about, I think it was like 56, sorry, I don't remember exactly, but it's 616 divided by the amount of trees that are there.
okay.
So, and then depending on the type of light that we use as well, I mean, you know, I think people,
The electricity is there because we have light poles down these blocks. So all I was talking about here was just continuing the string lighting. So the electric's there. We're just accessing the power poles, the lighting poles that are already there.
well,
So,
hold on. You're talking about the poles that are there in terms of the street lamps, right?
yes.
So, and you're assuming that we would tap into that line at the tree locations?
Yeah. Well, if you're string lighting, you're running from, you know, you're either putting some poles in. I think you'd have to put very few because between the trees and the existing.
No, this doesn't have poles. This is just lights and trees.
Okay. Well, we don't have to get into the weeds too much. Just 86 grand for 2 blocks of string lighting where we have existing power poles. That seems very.
Well, half of that is going to be covered in the next slide, and you raise a good point, Kirby. So if you'll go to the next slide, so there's a proposed project that Able City, as they were walking down, they saw this building, and this building, of course, exists there at the corner of Flores and Iturbide. It has those old torch lights at the top of the building. I think we've seen projects like this in other cities where you re-electrify something that's not been electrified for a while and work the project. And they're imagining what it would look like and the cost it would be to the project if we took on this additional project. So half of the budget that correct me if I'm wrong, Able City, but half of the budget that you see in the prior slide, Kirby, is this project in itself.
Well,
So
$30,000, and then plus again, we had those allowances in there for unforeseen conditions, which, you know, that's also, if the light is there, then we don't have to tap into. If the conduit is there and we can use it, we don't have to put any new conduit. So.
Okay, and just for clarification, what I was mentioning is the vision just for, it's not something elaborate, it's just continuing the string lighting, which would be relatively cost effective. So if that cost included something more elaborate than just string lighting that's running from pole to tree, then that's not what I was envisioning. I was just envisioning continuing the string lighting that's further down Iturbide so that it's down all of it.
So let me just say that this is lighting in trees. It's not the festoon lighting that would go across the streets, because then we would have to add the poles and the lighting, which is a different cost. We can look at that cost, but I'm just trying to clarify that.
So you're talking about the light that shoots up on the tree?
No, there's two types of lights. One that shoots up on the tree, those are LEDs. That's on essentially on sorry, that's on Zaragoza Street and on San Agustin Street. These lights are the ones that are inside the trees, like lit up in the trees, and there's like, lighting in trees that have the little bulbs in it.
Christmas lights? Like a Christmas tree, but bigger.
Well, kind of, but better. I mean, because those Christmas tree lights don't really work, but they have a better commercial one that we can use. But essentially, they're $25 a linear foot installed. So we can choose what that looks like later, which kind of bulb. But I just wanted to clarify that these are actually lights in the trees. We have another type of lighting that's an LED light that's from the ground up, which you've seen in the other slides. And then we have the festoon lighting that requires the poles across the streets.
Okay, well, I'm just curious. At the end of the day, I won't try to micromanage the type of lighting. I don't know about anybody else on the board, but just lighting is good. But to me, I just thought string lighting, we've got so many different ways to run that between the trees, the awnings, the poles, the power poles. It would just been a relatively inexpensive way to get lighting down the street that also looks pretty cool in string lighting. That's what I had envisioned.
I think that's true. It's from block, depending on the block. When we were sitting up in front of the mall and we were trying to do the string lighting concept and seeing where it would be strung from one side of the block to the other side of the block, it became a humongous challenge. But I agree with you, Kirby. I mean, I think this is going to be different depending on what block we're looking at and what's available for us to tap into. Very good. Okay, any other comments on this entire part that we saw on Iturbide Street was one of the motions that we made during the last meeting, asking Able City to do several things in several parts. So now you see where they gave us the options of the gateway. They talked to us about the 2-block area immediately between Santa Ursula and San Agustin, and then the idea of improving the lighting a little further down, trees and lighting a little further down. Are there any comments to this second motion and the work that Able City has put in?
I have a comment, if I can.
Yes, please.
Well, it's hard kind of to see, but it looks like it's about $300,000 per block if we do both sides of the street. And then it's 2 blocks, right? So that's $600,000, más o menos. And then I'm not sure if the 86 was for 2 per block, and then it's 2 more blocks.
Hold on a second. So you're referring to the slide that shows the one side of the street and the 2 sides of the street, and that is per block.
Right. So we, of course, I imagine that we don't want to do this halfway. So if we could, we want to do both sides of the street, right?
If it's possible. The idea was that we don't know whether we have the budget for it or not, and that's why we asked for both options.
Right. So it looks like just this project, and this might happen. I understand that, but I just I'm trying to get a confirmation that this project on its street would take all of our money.
Yes. Yeah.
I put 870,000 is what I have kind of estimated based on the numbers that I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yes. If we're going to do the project as we asked Able City to present it, but remember, what we asked Able City to do was to take our ideas and put a budget to it. That's what they're presenting right now.
Right,
So
right.
if you've done the math on that, that's the math. I don't have it in front of me right now with the math there, but yeah, if you're doing a back of the envelope calculation on this, I'm sure you're close to you're accurate, Carol.
Right. So
It's funny, though, you have a slide.
if we vote to do this one, then this would be our project.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If the only money we had was related to if the only money we had was related to what we have in the TERS fund right now.
Right.
Okay.
Henry, just to that point that Carol was making, where we're,
Yep.
I guess what I'm seeing here is like this. I don't remember discussing this. I don't know whose idea this was, but my vision was lighting for Iturbide. If we're going to split the project, let's get the lighting down in the most inexpensive way we could do that. Which, if we just string light and we have an entry sign, to me that seems like it'd be considerably less than the 850 grand that has street improvements, sidewalk improvements, bulb outs, this lighting on this building. So it would have been nice to see an option as well that is just cheapest lighting option, so that those that are also rooting for Zaragoza, there's money there too for that, but a connected lighting, string lighting down Iturbide.
Right. So I do recall the conversation, Kirby, and we talked about actually the 2 blocks between Santa Ursula and going to San Bernardo and to San Agustin. The extension beyond that actually was your idea. You're the one that began to discuss the lighting part of that. And so that's why we have the lighting discussion for further down. And what Able City added to that 1 block between San Agustin and Flores were the trees that don't exist, just to make it more consistent with the entire project. So if we took the trees out of the project from on Iturbide, from San Agustin to Flores, then the lighting work there and the lighting work further down was the direction on getting information on lighting. Can we go to a less expensive lighting? I certainly think we can. And again, they're presenting some information as we asked to present in terms of lighting. We can certainly, if the conduits are already there, if we don't want the building lit up, if we want the simple string lighting, yeah, the budget will come down considerably. There's no doubt about it.
All right. Well, I'm not criticizing
like to
what I see here. It's beautiful, and if the board wanted to vote to spend it all year, that would be my vote. But I know there are others who want to also spend some of it on Zaragoza. So I like what I see. It's beautiful. It's nice. It's just I didn't want us to get in a situation where we're picking either or, because Iturbide to me, well, we all know how I feel about that.
Right. No, they're only presenting that they went back and they listened to the meeting, and they're putting together information that was asked to put together. Again, it can be scaled down. I have no doubt about it. I'm sorry, Carol, you had something else to say?
Yeah, just in defense of this cost estimation, and with that image on the screen, right? I think that building, it says the Fernandez building was, I can't see the numbers. Does anyone know what dates are on that building?
I don't.
1920? 1912?
So the in defense of this.
That's 1942.
Okay, so in defense of this estimate, that when you do spend the money, right, then there's longevity, right? It's not like the big box Walmart store that has to be torn, well, like our Kmart, right? They just tumbled it to the ground because of the quality of construction. So all of this looks beautiful because I guess it has some quality. I'm a little curious about the TERS monies going to, even though I love the way this lighting looks on this private building, I'm not sure if we could spend TERS monies to light up a private building.
Okay, so that discussion, I don't think that right now. I want to finish with the discussion at hand and not get into. I think that's an important point, Carol, and I don't disagree with you. I don't know that we have an answer to that question right now. And I'd rather move forward with what we asked Able City to put together for us, because there were several motions. So if I can get your permission to continue, I'd appreciate it. I'll task the city.
I can quickly answer it for you, Henry. The answer is yes, if we have a public easement in place that allows us to use that. In other words, then it is a public improvement if it's the city allowed to light it. It's not private. We're not spending. You're right. We couldn't spend it on the private for the private person. We could spend it if we have some kind of agreement in place that this is our lighting on there.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to comment.
Yes.
I agree totally with Kirby and Carol on this one. It looks awesome, no doubt about it. It's a little bit off track from what we've been discussing, which has been just working on the right of way. But I do like the idea if we can get some sort of agreement that the city owns, has access, and not leave it to the private property owner to light up. That would be my concern. Leaving it to the private property owner doesn't guarantee us they'll even turn it on or they'll hook up a meter to it. So we'd have to get that cost and include it as part of the operational cost of that street.
Public easements for lighting are quite common in downtown areas where you have buildings like this, where we put our lighting or our signage on somebody's building. You can get lighting easements or signage easements. So if they were to agree, we could do that.
Yeah, I would support it if it were such a case like that.
Carol, does that answer your question?
Yes, and that makes perfect sense, especially about the cost and the access and whatnot.
Very good. Okay. Any more questions regarding this particular part? Sensing none, I'll move to, let's go to the next slide. And the next slide was to talk about murals. And one of the motion there was to task Able City with identifying a couple of other places where a mural may be placed, suggested locations for murals. And I'll let Viviana talk a little about those locations.
Okay, so what you have before you is 4 slides, and you have the locations in the orange or red dots, depending on the hues on your computer. So they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. The little orange dots are historic landmarks that have been identified by those marks, and so okay, so number 1 is of course the one that is on San Agustin Street, that one that we looked at originally on that wall, and is in your presentation, previous presentation, and you'll also see it in this one.
Right.
Number 2 is a location that is a very interesting location. It's the corner building, catty corner to Jarvis Plaza. It's the OXXO. The entire second floor is a blank canvas on the corner side, and the other 2 sides could be a really interesting place for a really dynamic mural, probably more than what our budget would allow, but maybe we can partner with somebody. There's another one on Salinas Street. It's that wall that's sticking out of that modern building on the right-hand side. It's long, has some windows at the top. Be a nice place for, of course, people have to agree that you can do this, of course. And then there's one small wall on Salinas and Zaragoza on the corner that is on a narrow sidewalk. It's not great, but it could be an interesting small mural where sometimes people can, stand in front of and take a picture in front of it, that kind of thing.
Very good. I don't think we're asking for a decision at this time, but what we're seeing here are ideas on suggested sites for murals. Are there any comments?
Just, I hate to be always making a comment, but also there's the corner of Zaragoza, and it's a brick building. Zaragoza and Convent has a big empty wall that faces Zaragoza. It's a two-story brick wall.
I just want to comment. I like the options and that it's sprinkled throughout, our downtown and not just, on the three areas that we're concentrating. So that at least there's some buy-in from other folks. They'd see some improvement. So I like that.
I've got a comment related to Carol's last comment. You asked about, can we do that lighting? Sidewalks are an example. In a lot of places, sidewalks, that's actually property owned by the property owner, but we have an easement. So we can spend TERS dollars because technically it is public property. So this is one that's a little tricky, because if it's not a public building or a public place that we're putting these, well, then we are spending money on private property, and that one's a little tricky because I haven't heard of something like a mural where we're allowed to have the face of it. I guess maybe we could create something like that. Maybe there is something that exists, but spending money on a private building, on a private wall, that might be an issue for TERS dollars. But if we have public places where we could put these walls or buildings that the city owns, I think those would be no question. We could spend TERS money on those.
Or what about if the private property owner, like you initially suggested, provided an easement free of charge?
Yeah,
for a certain amount of time, right?
I guess the perfect example that you mentioned, Carol. The perfect example that you mentioned, Carol, is the Rialto Hotel, the partnership that got into the city. That's a private wall. The city funded the mural, beautiful mural, iconic, great location. So it's a perfect thing. I think we can do it.
I'm sure we can figure out a way. It's just the challenge is with TERS monies, we are not meant to be spending that on private property. It's meant to be for public or quasi-public property. So that becomes the challenge. The same question she asked on the last one, except I haven't heard of something like a mural easement where we own the rights to that, that side of a person's building that we can then spend the money on and say it's publicly spent. But there are sign easements. Those are a little different because they're just usually attachments of signs to public buildings. But we can look into it.
May I ask a question?
Yeah. If there are public places, that would make it really easy. If there are public buildings or public walls, or if there's public space that we could put murals on, then there's no question there.
That would make it easier.
So I don't know if we've looked at that in this area, where we could put public murals on public buildings or public walls.
I agree with you, Kirby, that it's easier on a public property, but I don't think it's not allowable on a private, like I just mentioned to you in the Rialto, there was that agreement done. Yeah. And I think the consultant doing that, I think you get buy-in from the other property owners that are also paying into this TERS fund. So I mean, I think it's.
Well, I don't know the arrangements of that deal, but I would assume that the city just paid for it to get done. They don't own any rights to the side of that building. The difference is the city doesn't have that restriction, whereas the TERS does. Yeah. The state restricts the money that we spend to public facilities. In very rare cases that they spelled out, you can do other things than that, but it is pretty restricted to spending on public facilities.
Yeah, you had a comment?
Yes, that's why we had decided to show the possibility of lighting buildings like the one that we lit on Iturbide Street and Flores, because there is potential for doing that. And maybe there are other buildings that you all would like to see lit up, historic, beautiful buildings that would benefit by being lit up.
And some of the work we've seen on murals that are actually light shows, slow moving light shows, have been excellent. So yeah, these are things to consider. Thank you. Any other discussion on the recommended sites and the mural? Okay.
Yeah, and I guess my only comment on that was if it makes things complicated. Not that it can't be done; it's just complicated. Whereas, we can move pretty quickly, pretty easily if we found public locations to put murals on.
Right. Well, and to your point, Kirby, this seems to be a similar conversation to the facade deal. If you can put money into murals on a building, then why can't we improve a facade on a building? But the answer was because it's a private building. So, and it was explained to us that these are private monies going into public monies going into a private building. But let's continue to explore this because I think going to Arturo Garcia's point here, murals will enhance just the general area. Okay. The other thing we asked Able City to do was to take to Tangelo Parkway or walkway and from the 2-block area and divide it into 2 projects. So here what you see are the tree projects and the on the streets going from Grant Street to be Lincoln. And then if you go to the next slide, we're reminded of what the project looked like. I'll let it change. There we go. We'll be reminded about what the project looked like. We saw this on the last slide. Then if you go to the next slide, what they did for us as for our instructions was they took this and turned it into a phased-in project, doing one part of the project first, and then as money came in, doing the second part of the project. The first part of the project, phase 1, being 280,000, and correct me if I'm wrong, Able City, this is for the entire 2-block stretch, right? And then phase 2 was 176,000 for the 2-block stretch. Are there any comments? This was a pretty simple request of Able City saying, let's break up the project you presented in 2 parts, and here's their work. Any comments? Sensing none, then we go to Zaragoza, and the next thing we did was we took Able City back to Zaragoza and asked them to tighten up and work on the project there a little bit. Also, part of the discussion was that I had noticed that there were no sketches or designs. We covered Salinas to Convent, but in terms of visually, didn't see anything from Convent to Flores. And the request there was, we've been doing two block chunks, Iturbide from Santa Ursula to Tangelo, the Tangelo 2-block area. And now this, a 2-block area here. And we asked them to revisit it, to tighten up the budget a little bit, and that's what they did. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see as it exists now, in the next slide as it's envisioned. And here with the budget numbers on how they see the project working. Again, it is a single side kind of project, single side of the street. It's going to be complicated to narrow the street more than it is because it will already be narrow. Also, buy-in from the businesses that exist on the other side of the street, where we may be taking cab spaces away, may be a challenge. But we asked them to stick to the one side of the curb. Here's the budget that they put together for us: 200, and I'm sorry, is it that 62,000 or 52,000? But we have the number that, $52,108. And then the next slide shows a minimal investment in tidying up the project from Convent to Flores, because as we know, it's already paved. There are already pavers there. There are trees there. It's more on the idea of adding lighting, maybe an additional tree, and the kind of work it would take to work this project here. Again, we can adopt it, but I just didn't want this to be neglected, because several people had said several times that this is where people get out. When they exit the bridge, the pedestrians do, this is what they see. And so if this is what they're seeing and this is what they're being greeted with, we needed to tidy it up a little bit. Are there any comments to this?
May I do a clarification?
Yes, please. Go, yes. You're on mute.
Can you go to the previous slide, please? So I see an error on this little plan where the trees are. It's actually replacing all, it's in pink, right? But it should be in a different color because we would be replacing all of that side of the street in this cost. So it's not making that clear here. It only looks like we're adding light wells and we're not. We're removing widening so that we can go around. We have a nice little area to go around the ramps and stuff that are there. We're replacing those ramps, and then but everything is happening on that side of the street. We could not take air out of this particular part of the project. Just FYI.
Okay.
This is pretty much bare boned. I mean, we could take the lights out, but then you're not going to get the same effect.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification.
Sure. And in the next slide, okay, in this slide, essentially, if we were to do this at the same time, each one is looking at mobilization and traffic control as a separate project. So there are efficiencies when you do more than one project together. It takes some air out. Just I wanted to clarify that as well. And then, this is a very historic street. Once you start, digging to put lights in and do all of that, we had to put cost in there for that because, we just won't know exactly what we're going to find.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Any comments?
It looks like this could be the project where we could start and make quite an impact on our, start doing something, right? That I know that city leaders have been waiting for us to do something.
Right.
It almost looks like this would be a good place to start because the impact financially is minimal compared to all the other projects.
Thank you. That's a good point. Any other comment? Okay, Sensi, now let's go to the next slide. Here it is. We're just showing a slide that I think we've seen in a prior presentation, showing the gateway into the Zaragoza Street project, and that hasn't changed. If you go to the next slide, this is an important part of going to Kirby's comment about wanting to see what we had put together on for the manager's office presentation. So what we did was we took these preliminary numbers that Able City had put together for the grant, Zaragoza, San Agustin, Iturbide project. We did not include, and what you won't find in this budget here is the entrance to the gateway to Zaragoza, the pyramids. It's everything but that budget there. And we talked to the city manager's office about a $1.6 million budget, of which at the time of the last meeting with the city manager's office, there was approximately $950,000. In there. We had been talking about 800,000 all this time because some money had not come in. More money has come in and it's grown. And we asked the city to help us identify funding to at least maybe perhaps match what we had put in here, so that if the TERS put in 800,000, 850,000, perhaps the city could put in $850,000. And I will, as Jose mentioned in his general comments, we were very pleased that, first of all, the reception for what we presented, which was basically this, was well received. Will bore you with my 20-minute spiel that I like to do every so often that shows how we've evolved to this point, but I didn't spare them. I described to them how when the TERS started, how large the TERS is, and how we've narrowed it to this significant point. And this hasn't been an easy deal. And we've taken into account some of the requests Their heads were nodding when we were talking about connecting the outlets to San Agustin. Patty Goldberg made some very relevant comments to the manager's office and the team that was there regarding this. And then we talked about north-south connectors. So I think they saw that we had, even though this is still over what we have, that we've narrowed it considerably and have a nice picture of a walkable area that we've connected Zaragoza up San Agustin Street to Iturbide Street, connecting the outlets, connecting the museum, connecting the cathedral, connecting the Laredo Center for the Arts, the Plaza Theater. They saw this, and I could tell by their heads nodding that they got it. And there was a lot of positive. I'm sorry?
Hopefully you left out the part how big a pain in the butt I've been. Hopefully
No. Actually, that's one of the things. If they haven't talked to you yet, expect a call from them very soon. No, actually, actually it was the opposite, and I made it a point I pointed out the fact that I specifically was happy that the first two people that had contacted me were private sector members of the board to be on this subcommittee, because I acknowledged, and they nodded. I said, you see the city portion of the board have access to them, and you see them more often than you see the private sector people. So with the exception of Carol, because that would have been a quorum, we wanted to present a face of private sector people there. They agreed, but I acknowledged, and I want to subrayar, underline the fact that we talked about how well we work as a team, and that's not hyperbole. This is the truth. The exchange is very good. So what Jose alluded to earlier that I really liked about the presentation to the manager's office was that they said, maybe since you do have a revenue stream coming in, we could look at bond money, because at least we know that it's going to be paid back. It's, you have a revenue stream coming in that's going to pay back the project. And we have gone through the task of narrowing this. I pointed out to them that we really didn't want to break this up into parts. We wanted this to be part one, because I explained to them, Convent Street is another project. Salina Street is another project. Connecting to and working with LC is another project. So if we divide phase one into sub phases, then where does that leave 2, 3, and 4? And they agreed. So that's why I think they presented us with the idea, and they tasked us with a couple of things. They asked if the board had moved to approve this project as a whole. And the answer was no, because we still didn't have this new prepared package. And they asked us to move forward with approving all of the package together. The project. He says, forget the cost at this point. Approve the concept of the project as it's been presented. And I think we're seeing it. This is it. Then they asked us to then work with them to meet with the bond council so that we could talk about how this project could move forward, maybe with assistance of bond money.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
noticed that Mr. Ceballos said that he needs to leave at 3:30 before he leaves. I mean, would you like to
Yes.
have a motion on this?
I'm sorry, I didn't see that until right now. Jose?
Can we let someone from the private sector make that motion?
Yes,
But is Jose still with us?
that's what I was asking.
He may have left, and I'm sorry.
Patty, Carol?
I would make the motion if I really think that signage, that gateway to its street is critically important. And I heard Henry mention that is not included in that. So if I'm
In other words, you would make a motion to include the project just presented and include the gateway to. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor.
Kirby?
Very good. Kirby has seconded the motion. The plan has been presented by Able City, including that portion that includes the gateway into Zaragoza Street, be adopted by us and to move forward as a project to work on. Is there any discussion?
Sorry, I had to turn off my video. I had a very bad reception. No, I mean, I'm in agreement with everything. And like the question you asked me earlier, I felt like the meeting went really, really well, much better than expected from the city. They were very, very receptive and positive. And what I really liked, felt was encouraging, was that they were willing to look at some current on the plan, you know, in the works projects that are coming up. And they said, well, since we're already going to be there, we'll go ahead and expand the sidewalks or do whatever would make sense to check into what our projects are. I thought that was very encouraging.
Yeah, because also at the meeting, Patty is alluding to some comments that Ria Zolmia made at the meeting about street work that's being done exactly in this area, and that we would be able to leverage some of that work there with our project.
After we vote and whatnot, I did have to talk about partner participation and leveraging funding and also afterward.
It's something comes to mind right now, because we're talking about, we basically moved, this has been the presentation. There are two other parts to the presentation, board members. We asked Able City to look into the EDA grant for the NEZ tax abatement TERS deal. I would like to table those last two portions for a later date and focus on the project.
Motion to table those items as suggested by the chairman.
Point of order, Henry, we still have the one motion already.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Is there a motion officially, or I thought it was?
Yeah, it was a motion. It was a motion. You're correct.
Okay. Can you repeat the motion?
So it's been moved that we accept the project as presented by Able City with the budget to include the portion of the gateway for Zaragoza Street, and a check accepted as a project.
For Iturbide.
Great.
No, for Iturbide. I was talking about.
Oh, I thought that you said that it didn't include the gateway to
No,
Street.
Iturbide is included. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The gateway to Zaragoza is what's not included.
Yeah,
So-
the gateway to Zaragoza I don't feel is as critical as the gateway.
Okay. Okay. So then let's thank you for clarifying that point. So the motion is to accept the project that has been presented, meaning the gateway to Iturbide, the Iturbide Street, the Zaragoza and work to move forward with that project as a whole. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Because of prior items before, because of the property owner district. So.
Very good. All those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Okay, now there's also Arturo or Kirby, who would you read?
Table those last two items.
Motion to table as suggested by the chairman.
I'll second, Kirby.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Later date, all those in favor, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Very good, motion carries. Okay, now here's where I'm going to ask for staff support on this issue. Basically, we handled in item 5 more or less what we have on item 6. That motion really was an item 6 kind of issue. Can we just say that item 6 has been taken care of as well?
Yes, you
All
can
right.
do that as the chairman.
Okay, very good. Then let's see. Then also what we've done in the same motion that we did in the prior motion authorizing us to move. Oh, no. Let's do this separately. In the city of Laredo to seek financing opportunities for the project development. So you've heard our discussion with the city manager's office. We've approved the project. Let's get formal motion on moving forward with working with the city and bond council to discuss this.
I'll make that motion.
It's been moved by Kirby.
I'll second.
It's been seconded by Carol. Is there any discussion?
I have a comment. Well, I heard earlier when you were talking about that you had a good meeting with the city manager, and that the assistant city manager had suggested that I'm wondering if that financial advisor could be Sue Darcy, who's very familiar with our workings here.
City's bond council to talk about bonding for the project. But certainly if bring on whoever we need to bring on board to give us the advice we need.
Okay. And also,
Just on that point, do we not have an agreement with the city, like how we can use their legal?
They still wanted a formal motion.
I was just speaking to Carol's question about a separate financial advisor when we have access to one, the city's financial.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry.
misunderstood. I just heard earlier when was a recommendation from the city to, and I wondered about.
Yeah, correct me,
Yeah.
actually, Patty or Jose, you may correct me on this because maybe my memory is not as strong. The idea the city recommended that we speak to their bond counsel, right? Was it correct?
Sorry, go ahead, Carol. I have a comment now.
I was at a meeting the other day where I was at the Main Street meeting, and they asked me to speak about I was speaking, and one of the Main Street members is Eileen Ramos from the city's CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau. And so she let me know that that the city has engaged in a project. Well, it's already happened. Some of it, the rebranding project that's already, I guess, developed that agave plant, logo and whatnot. So I specifically that she has a committee and funding and the directive to work on wayfinding in downtown Laredo, and that wayfinding, what I understood is going to include at least 27 signs. Historic areas, a Center for the Arts, a Center for the Plaza, where to go, how to get there. So since we also are going to need to do that, right, with our project, I was hoping, I asked who met if downtown had that would speak or advocate to the downtown interests, the CBD, the Central Business District interests, both on the of the landowners, the property owners, the stakeholders in downtown. And it's almost like a stake, all of the right now I'm thinking in the terms of taxes, because the density of the taxes that we're having to pay for our empty buildings is assaulting. And so to hear great professionalism, she has great ideas, she's really motivated, and but when she lists where's the representation from the CBD, where's the representation from the property owners, and where are the local artists, where is the and of course my only experience with is the comprehensive plan. And I know the comprehensive plan really went out of their way community, and I met a lot of you in those workshops, and that stuff was all written down so anyway, I'm hoping that we can advocate for our Central Business District and our stakeholders, and that whoever that entity or that person or that invited to these meetings that are connected to branding and marketing of our area.
Okay, and so
Carol, question on that. Hasn't Main Street Laredo, I mean, Priscilla's here, maybe she can speak to that, but I thought I think they work really hard to be that group, but when they're not recognized by if there's not that it should be included in these meetings, especially with pandemic and the changing objective of what Main Street is doing. It really does lend itself to be that advocacy group.
To Carol's point, Carol, I mean, we need you to continue to attend those meetings to make sure that we're participating in that, because short of the group, and that group needs to be formed, and if it's not formed in the immediate future, we need to have our tentacles out, so to speak, so that we're attending the meetings where we can make a difference and coordinate. That have been held on security downtown, and how anything that Able City is working on in terms of lighting and trees and everything include a security component, because and let me tell you, their heads were nodding in unison about security cameras and things of that nature that needs to be taken into account, working with the police department, because that had been a sub meeting and a discussion that was made. So let's keep those comments there. Let's keep on making sure we're included in those meetings, because we'd like to work with Eileen on the signage. I think that needs to be coordinated.
Yeah, the point of my comment was specifically connected to the financial aspect, right? So that we don't have to double up on so that if we had that representation, it would help on cutting down the cost and being more efficient, you know.
Carol, I think you got the consulting aspect of it once everything kind of gets moving with CVB. I think that's pretty easily arrangeable.
Okay.
Henry?
We had, I'm sorry, Jose Ceballos had.
On that topic, we could put something on the agenda to ask city management to maybe increase their advisory board at CVB to add a first member to that board, and maybe that assures that we're in the loop. That was not my comment on the item, but I just thought I'd mention that. On the motion, I understand the motion is to authorize the board and the city of Laredo to seek financing, consulting, to consult their finance advisor. I don't know if that's the motion.
Yes, that's the motion. That's the motion that we're discussing right now.
So I would like to ask those that make the motion element on it, a constraint, a time frame, so that this doesn't go on indefinitely, so that if we don't reach some sort of a viable option with bonding, that we come back and mobilize our original plan. And I think 60 days is probably good enough. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a suggestion that I'll put out there for the board. But just put a time frame on this so that we don't stagnate any further.
Okay, so there's a
An amendment to that?
it's been moved that we accept the amendment.
Well, the amendment is, why don't we say by next meeting, and let's just get it done. Let's have that conversation. Let's not wait 6.
With all due respect to both of you, in terms, I think we can move in 60 days. I think asking us to move in 30 days, it's been a challenge to get the meeting that we did get with the manager's office, and we have been looking to do that for a while. Being wrong already right from the get-go. I'd like to stick to
Well, I mean, we can always extend it, but I was just thinking if we could say to management, hey, we need to make a decision by our next meeting.
Okay, that's fine. Then I'll also ask you, Kirby, to help us stay on top of that.
I will.
Okay, so then,
if it's appropriate for me to second that, I think it needs.
Patty, Carol, Jose, will you second?
I thought that was Kirby, the motion, and then Carol, seconded.
Okay, she said, I think that was a yes by raising her hand. So then the on the table.
Henry, one
yes.
other thing
Yes.
is to maybe for the board to consider designating folks to maybe join you at those meetings without a forum.
Very good. We'll do is I will do what I did the last time, if that's okay with everybody. We need one other person, and I will take a volunteer from the board to step up and say I volunteer. Very good. So the motion on the table is to authorize the TERS board and the city to discuss with their bond council seeking financing opportunities for the project developed as we have approved in the prior motion, to do this within 30 days, and authorizing Kirby Snideman, Jose Ceballos, and Henry Sauvignon to be the sub. First, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Henry, I have another meeting at 4. If I leave, does that affect the quorum?
I don't think it quite does yet. I'm trying to wrap it up by 4 o'clock. So the next.
Mr. Chairman, I see that we have Mr. Rafael Dueñas on the meeting. I don't know if I know that we were open for public comments earlier, but did he want to maybe comment on something? I don't know if he joined us for.
Very good. You're right. Thank you. I'm noticing that that we have Mr. Dueñas on the line. Rafael, do you have any comments or to add to the meeting or anything you've heard so far?
No comment for now. Congratulations on the work that you guys are doing. Keep it up, and hopefully we're one step closer to revitalizing downtown and get it up and running. Thank you all for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. And I look forward to you're attending more meetings. And if you need any information about the group or any more of the briefings, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Henry.
Very good. The next item on the agenda is a discussion. Item 8, discussion and Able City. I'm going to be very honest with you. I had is this going to be an undue burden asking us to not move on this motion at this time so that I can review this a little bit more? Privileged and ask one of you to make a motion to table this item for the next meeting.
So moved. Kirby.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying, is there any further? All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, the last item on the